Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. And recently, I entered into my first ever over-the-board chess tournament. This tournament was a sectional, which means that you're grouped based on your rating and you only play against people at a similar skill level to you. There's usually several sections and if you win the most in your section, you win your section. I don't have an official rating yet, so they put me in the lowest section. My section had a total of 5 rounds and I was actually able to win every single one, and I won the entire section. These were some awesome and difficult games, and in a few of them I was able to come back from completely losing positions, and I even got a brilliant move in one of the games. Now, let's get into the first game here. And this game starts with a Queen's Gambit declined exchange, and nothing too interesting so far. Exchange there, and I'm just setting up my pieces here. Here I should have captured with the B pawn. Actually, I captured with the queen. The reason I should have captured with the B pawn here is so I could play C4. I overlooked that and I captured with the queen. Still fine, but capturing with the B pawn would have been a little better. Here castles. I moved my queen back, just lining it up on this diagonal. And then he goes up there to attack, I go up there to block, and now this bishop here is actually pinned to the h7 pawn. So if he just goes back, I take here with check. So instead of moving it, he defends it, or instead of moving or exchanging, he defends it, and then I bring my knight up here, putting pressure on the queen. The queen has to stay defending this because it's attacked by the bishop and the queen, and only defended by the knight and the queen. So if he would move the queen, it wouldn't be adequately defended. So he moves it forward, I castle, he attacks my knight, and I move it back, and here he makes a pretty big mistake. He moves the knight. I think he must have failed to realize that my queen was also supporting it. I'm not sure really what he was thinking, because if my queen wasn't there, he'd be able to take my bishop, but he fails to notice that. I'm actually able to pick up the free bishop here. Not only do I get the free bishop, but I'm actually forking the queen and the pawn. So on the next turn, I'm able to take the pawn, he slides the king over, and because of where he put his queen, I'm able to play knight h4, which is a forced fork. There is nothing you can do because I'm threatening a fork of 3 pieces. Usually what you'd have to do to get out of a fork is move one of the pieces first, and then if they put their piece to attack the other one, the second piece in the fork, you would move the second piece. But here, he can't move both his queen and his rook at the same time, and so he moves the queen out of the fork, able to fork the king and the rook, and here he makes another mistake. He should have just taken the bishop here, but for whatever reason, he decides to sacrifice his queen. It still would have been winning otherwise, like if he captured here, and I took this, and he goes back, and then I go here. It's still completely winning for me, but it's a 4.6 advantage versus a +7 advantage. And because he sacrificed his queen, I'm able to win the game much quicker. We move our pieces around a bit, and eventually I'm able to find the checkmate. So this game was relatively simple, very standard opening, and then he just hung a few pieces in the middle game, lost all of his king safety, and I was just able to completely take advantage of that. And yeah, pretty simple. So this next game, Game 2, was actually pretty interesting. What happens here is I was able to win this one because of a key mistake my opponent made in the opening. So that just goes to show the opening is very, very important, and just learning a bit of opening theory can go a long way, even at lower levels. As you can see here, what happened is my opponent was placing his center pawns here, also his f-pawn, which generally shouldn't move your f-pawn. He's putting them all on light squares. And what that does is it creates a dark square weakness. We bring our knights out. What I should have done is gone to bishop c5, taking advantage of this monstrous diagonal, and effectively infiltrating with the bishop, just controlling that entire diagonal. I failed to notice that. I instead go to pin the knight. He blocks with he unpins with the bishop. We're just developing, but eventually my bishop does end up back controlling this diagonal here. He's just developing. I bring my knight over here, just putting it in a good position. Can't currently be kicked out by a pawn. Here he makes a mistake. He captures it with the bishop, and remember, I mentioned I get a brilliant move. It's knight captures c2. the chess.com analysis says this move is brilliant because not only does it win a pawn, by the way, that was a check, picking up a pawn, a check, but also a discovered attack on the bishop. So I'm able to pick up the bishop and I've gotten a free pawn. However, the real reason that move was good wasn't actually about the pawn. If it just got a free pawn, I don't think it really would have been brilliant. I think it would have just been, considered the best move or maybe an excellent move. But the reason it's brilliant is because I get my bishop in this completely dominating position. Look at this. White can't castle on either side of the board because of this bishop. It has so much control. This bishop is the strongest piece on the board right now. That's why next move he goes to attack it. However, I can trade off that knight. This pawn's pretty weak. The castle. And now he's desperately trying to launch some attack on my king side. And I don't handle it very well. However, my opponent doesn't handle it very well either. And so I go here, he's attacking my bishop. I slide it forward. He's got these very dangerous pawns here. I'm still winning. He's got these very dangerous pawns out, and it's a bit difficult to manage, however. And he's just encroaching upon me. And here he's going to attack my bishop. What I do here is I just give him a check. Now he can't castle. I try and kick the knight out, and what he does is he says, well, this knight's less valuable than this bishop, so I want to trade off. However, I find not a sacrifice, but an in-between move here, a desperado. I think it would be considered an in-between move, where I take this pawn, because if he takes back, I can just take his knight, and I've gotten a free pawn. In here, I play something similar, where I take this pawn, and I'm trying to win a tempo on the rook, so I can capture the knight on the next turn when he has to move the rook out of danger. However, he has this move here, and this doesn't actually work. What I played here, this move, it actually loses a piece because he attacks my queen, he gains a tempo on the queen, and I saw this. I thought I could go queen h5. I thought that this was gaining a tempo with the threat of queen h1 check, move the king out of the way, and take the rook. So if he moved his knight, I figured he was actually losing a rook. However, I was wrong. This isn't what was played in the game, but white could have gone knight e3, which puts another defender on this square. So after queen h1, he could block with either the knight or the bishop. The knight would be better just to continue guarding this square. Otherwise, there would be a fork here of the king and the rook, just to show you here. This would be bad because I could fork here and pick up, or sorry, not pick up the rook, but pick up the knight. Let's move here, and this would just be generally good. Chess.com is saying it's plus 0.2, but it still would have been good. But just generally, this move I missed here, this knight e3 move, I missed that. However, he misses it too. He plays here, just getting his king to safety, and I pick up the knight. And here's another mistake. He pushes his pawn forwards. He actually did have an interesting idea here. This move f4, it was setting up rook takes g7, which is a check, and a discovered attack on the queen. However, it just hangs his pawn. And then he goes here attacking my queen, which is a fork of the king and the rook, so I'm able to pick up the rook. However, I don't pick up the rook because he blunders again, and he blunders a skewer of the king and the queen. And I pick up the queen, and then we trade rooks. And now, of course, I'm just completely winning. It's -10. We move our pieces around a bit. I move my king out to get my rook here. I shuffle my pieces back and forth to get that. I'm just encroaching. Now, technically I could have sacked my queen here for the rook, but it didn't, doing this was better because I get the fork of the king and the bishop with a tempo on the rook. He goes here. I'm just pushing my pawn. Here I give it, in a second here I give a check. This check was unnecessary, but I wanted to see if he was going to go here, and then, because if he went here, I really get a fork here and pick up the rook on the next turn. I figured I might as well see if he was going to do that. No, he doesn't. And then I just go ahead and promote to a queen. And then the rest of this is pretty simple. Find the checkmate. So, really the main reason I was able to get my advantage in this game was because of his dark square weaknesses. My dark square bishop doesn't last all that long in this game. However, it was its influence that was able to get me these 3 pawns here, these 4 pawns actually, because of this Desperado move right here. That set off the chain reaction that let me get all of those pawns, which is why I was winning so much. And the reason why Dark Sword Bishop was so strong was because of these first few moves. Literally the first 3 moves of the game is why he lost. Because he set up the Dark Square weakness. I mean, it's not the only reason why he lost, but it sets up the Dark Square weakness, which made my bishop so valuable, and my bishop is what won me the game, even though it didn't last so long. And now let's move on to the third game. Now I'm going to be honest with you, I did not deserve to win this one. In this game, I fall for an opening trap in the Vienna Gambit, and I end up in a completely losing position. However, a few massive mistakes from my opponent, because of a few massive mistakes by my opponent, I'm actually able to gain a winning position. So, let's just see. And this was a good learning experience for me because I'm very, very bad in the Vienna. I never really know what I'm doing. And let's see here. So, I end up not taking the pawn. I don't know if you're supposed to take the pawn here or not. This is something I need to study. But yeah, he gets the whole center here. I'm forced to put my knight back on g8. This is looking very bad. He's a bit overextended, but I'm down so much development and he has so much center control. It's just not going very well. I take the pawns here. However, what he's setting up is he's got a triple attack on f7 here. And the way he did that was specifically by sacrificing this f-pawn. That f-pawn opened up the file for the castle king rook here. And then by moving the knight, he attacked it, of course, with the knight, but also opened up the rook to attack f7 because the knight was no longer in the way. And now if you look at the eval, white is up +3. So I'm definitely losing here. I still try and fight back a bit. I go and defend f7 once. He takes, I take, and I get forked. And this is looking really bad. I go and move my queen out of the way, and he takes my rook. I take his knight, and he's only up 1 point of material, but I have horrible king safety. Only one of my pieces developed, and it's just looking very, very bad. He gives me a check, and apparently this was his first mistake. Chestercom thinks that check was very bad. Now it's only plus 0.8. I don't necessarily see what's wrong with it. But here he makes his real mistake, where he completely hangs his queen. Now, I'm not going to blame him too much here. This seems like maybe a mistake I would make too. If you're just not thinking, you're like, oh, just put pressure on the queen, it's pinned, but forgetting that my queen can just capture his queen. This would only work if, for example, this queen was a bishop, because this bishop wouldn't be able to capture his queen, and he'd be putting pressure on this, if this was a bishop, and it would be able to capture it, and it would just be pressure. However, I can just capture it. He's able to pin the queen to my king's out, so he does only technically lose a rook here. I go and develop a bishop with check, just free development. And then I just sack my queen for the rook because there's nothing else I can do. And I'm just completely winning here. I've bad king safety. However, I'm up a lot of material. I go here, which was a slight inaccuracy. The reason is he can go check and bring the knight out. Right, just bring the knight out for free. So there was a slight inaccuracy. I should have gone to d8 most likely. Well, I guess I couldn't have gone to d8, but d7. He doesn't do that though, and he actually hangs his knight, and so he brings his rook forward to attack my bishop, but I'm actually able to harass his rook, and as you can see here, this move has a double purpose. I'm attacking the rook, skewering this pawn, and getting it out of the way from my rook. So this was a very interesting tactic here. He has to move the rook back to defend this pawn, but then I pin the rook to checkmate. If he doesn't want to trade rooks here, he would have to go to one of these squares, and then I would checkmate him. Back rank checkmate. So I go here, and he's forced to trade, and now I'm just up so much material. I'm taking pawns. I end up trapping his bishop here because he takes kind of a bad pawn to capture here. Can't get his bishop out. I sacked my bishop there just because I wanted these pawns here, and that bishop didn't really matter since I'm up so much. I just pushing this pawn. I capture that bishop, and after a little bit, my opponent ends up resigning. So, this was a game, again, this was a game I definitely did not deserve to win because I played very, very poorly in that opening. I fell hook, line, and sinker for the trap. However, my opponent did not stay focused, They got in a winning position, they did stay focused, and that was their main mistake, was not staying focused. It's not over till it's over. This was a very, very stressful game, but I was able to come out on top. Just barely. Now, the fourth game. This game, I actually hang my queen. The third game, my opponent hung my queen. In my fourth game, I actually hung my queen. And that's pretty embarrassing in and of itself. However, I was able to play on. I was able to play on. I was actually able to eke out a win here. It was very close. It was very, very stressful. We both used a lot of our time. And let's just get into it. This game was crazy. So my opponent actually plays the Marshal, which I believe is considered a more dubious opening. It's a response to the Queen's Gambit, because basically what white can just do here is just take the pawn, just exchange. Once you take back with the knight, you just play e4 and get the whole center. Maybe it's not that bad, but in my experience, I win a lot against the Marshal. It just seems pretty bad, but whatever. It is an opening. It is more of a respected opening. He apparently knight c6 here is a mistake. I'm not entirely sure why, but we're just developing pieces. This is pretty standard. I've got these two very nice pawns in the center. They're not as good as you might think because they're not supported or anything, but they are still very nice. We're just developing normally. And here, there's quite a lot of pressure. There's pressure here, and there's pressure here. And if this knight moves, which, yeah, by the way, I was attacking the knight here, moves it back to a bit of a weird square. I move my knight. What's happening here is there's a lot of pressure going on. I'm pressuring here, I'm pressuring here, I'm pressuring here, and I'm pressuring here. So what he has to do is to keep defending with his queen there. However, I can't just take. What he was supposed to do, because I have three pieces attacking, and he only has these two pieces defending. What he was supposed to do is play danger levels. I'm attacking his queen. What he can do is attack my queen. And then I take here, and he can take here, and I can do something like take here, and apparently that's worse. But, there we go. I guess the reason I shouldn't have taken the rook there is because he could just move his bishop out, and then I can't move my rook anywhere. But I would still end up material, so it doesn't really matter. But that doesn't happen. He does hang the bishop here. I think he failed to realize. I think he failed to realize this was a fork here. When I move the knight here, I think he only saw the attack on the queen and didn't see the attack on the bishop. Either that, or he didn't see that this queen was also an attacker. Either way, he ends up hanging it. I'm feeling pretty good here, and I think I actually get a bit cocky in this game, which is why I end up falling for, let's be honest, a pretty obvious trap. He's setting this up here. He's odding h2. I'm not even paying attention at this point. I'm just like riding on the high of being up a bishop, and he drives me here because I capture the pawn, and he gets a check and a discovered attack on my queen. What happens is he moves his bishop, takes the pawn. That's check. I have to save my king, but then it opened up the rook to take the queen. And now, if you'll notice, I am still up material. I've won quite a few pieces and quite a few pawns. Well, we're equal pawns, but I've won 2 pieces. I got the rook and the bishop for the queen, and I also got the bishop earlier. So I am actually technically up material. Now, my opponent's real mistake was b6 here. This move actually loses the game. He was a bit worse before, but this move b6 completely loses. The reason why, you should have just taken here. There's absolutely no reason not to just take there. Because what happens is I have a monstrous passed pawn here on the 6th rank. And what I do is I push it to c7. He goes here, I just trade that off because I don't really need that bishop. I'm doing fine. And I move my knight here, which is defending this pawn, and it's attacking this pawn, and actually setting a trap. My opponent, I believe, saw the trap. They knew it was coming, but they didn't really have anything else to do here. In fact, the best move is actually what he played with his queen h4 check. What this does is it attacks the king and it attacks the knight, so he can capture the knight. And here I'm able to just promote to a queen, and my opponent resigns because there's nothing they can do. If they take my queen, it is mate in 1, so they can't take the queen. I'm up a queen. I'm not up a queen, but I'm up a rook and a bishop, and there's absolutely nothing my opponent can do. If you look at the eval, it's plus 8.7. I have such a monstrous lead that all they can do is resign. This was a very, very stressful game. I honestly can't believe I won. This was probably the hardest game in the entire tournament for me. But yeah, I was just barely able to win. And actually, so this B6 move, I was still in a slightly better position without this move, like before. However, I honestly am not sure I would have been able to win this. Just because, like, this pawn is the reason I won, basically. Like, this pawn, the threat of this pawn promoting and eventually promoting made it completely impossible for my opponent to do anything. So, yeah, this was a very stressful game. I hung my queen just because I was getting cocky after I got the bishop, but I was able to come back and I was able to win. My opponent played very well, I think, except for the bishop, hang, and b6 here. Now, before I show you this next game here, let me give you a little bit of backstory. Before I entered this tournament, or when I was entering into this tournament, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't expect to win a single game. I assumed I was gonna lose all my games. I assumed these people were gonna be super, super serious and I wasn't gonna have a chance. I was going here for a learning experience only. But at this point, I had won, remember the tournament's 5 rounds, and I had just won 4 out of 5 rounds in a tournament I didn't expect to win a single game in. And it was at this point that I checked the standings and I was in first. I had 4 points for 4 wins, and the person in second had 3.5 points. 3 points for 3 wins and 0.5 points for 0.5 points for 1 draw. So he won 3 times and drew once, and I won 4 times. Even worse, to even add to my nerves, as I was playing as black, this next game was for the tournament. However, I only had to make a draw. I was going into this game knowing that if I had a chance to make a draw, I was going to take it. However, I was able to win. I could have made a draw, but I did actually win. So let's get into the game here. This was another game where I actually made a mistake early on. So this is like ultra standard Gioco piano. He's playing the, I believe this is the main line if I'm not wrong. Now, I believe I'm the one who left theory here at some point. Actually, I believe the main line is knight d2. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not super familiar with this opening. But at any rate, we don't end up playing the main line for so long. He goes and take the open file. I pin this knight to the queen. And he goes there. He doesn't want to play g4 because that would expose his king. So I'm safe to just go back here and keep pinning this. Now, at this point, I had been looking at the move knight takes d4 for a few moves now. That was my idea of playing here. Now, I was just hyper focused on that move because the knight doesn't defend because, again, pin to the queen. If the knight moved, I'd be able to take the queen. And that's why I pinned the knight. And here, he moves his queen, and I don't realize that that means the knight isn't pinned anymore. So I take on d4, and he takes my knight. And I'm like, oh, okay. I guess I'm gonna get second in the tournament. I guess I'm gonna lose this game. But I play on. I go ahead and connect my rooks here. I put the queen on this diagonal. I have some maybe vague idea of maybe sacrificing this bishop there or something. I don't know. I'm just grasping at straws here, right? He goes ahead. He plays this a3 move. I was a bit confused at the moment. You'll see the idea of it a bit later, though. Well, not a bit later, like a move later. I'm going here. He goes his bishop back there, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting. But I just keep going. I move my knight here. This wasn't actually the best move. It says the best move was bishop g6, bishop g6, attacking the queen. That makes sense. But the knight here, again, I really don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I want to sack here or something. I just have very vague ideas. And here he makes a very big mistake. And you'll notice the eval bar just completely skyrockets. What happens here is white is threatening checkmate. That's all, checkmate here, and then king here, and then checkmate, because king can't move to here because of the rook taking the file. However, what this does is it disconnects the rooks. The rooks no longer see each other. So I can take here with check, which is safe because it's a check. You know, he can't move his queen to checkmate me. It wouldn't even necessarily be checkmate, because even if he could move his queen this turn. But, you know, at this point, now I'm completely winning. And I'm just, so here g6, I blocked the checkmate in that way. The better move was actually it says queen takes d4, which is actually really interesting. It just wants me to allow this. I didn't even look at that. I guess it just wants me to lose my rook here. I guess it's fine with that. I don't know. That looks pretty scary to me. I don't really want that to happen. But I played g6, which is actually setting a trap. I didn't go here because I wanted to set the trap where g4 does trap my bishop. However, it loses the game because I sack my bishop. And if he takes back, which is what happened, he's not supposed to take back. It says queen c3. I'm not entirely sure why, but since he takes back, now it's forced mate in 3. Now it's mate in 2. The reason why is because my rook, my queen, and my knight are working very well together. And there's 2 checkmates that are threatened right now. Actually, 3 checkmates that are threatened right now. And you can't defend all of them. He moves his queen here, just defending this mate here. And I'm able to get the checkmate. This game was, I was super stressed in this game. I think I was sweating. But this was super awesome. I honestly still can't believe that I won this tournament, won my section in this tournament. I didn't expect to win at all. These were super, super fun games, and I'm looking forward to playing more over-the-board tournaments in the future. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.